Bitcoin's on blast. For the first time since April of 2022, it zoomed past the 45,000 mark today and came within $78 of 46,000 before retreating, but we're still above 45,000 at 45,186 right now. After being crowned the best performing asset class of 2023, Bitcoin's prowess continues into the new year, boosted in great part by Wall Street speculation. The Securities and Exchange Commission is within days, like 3 days, of approving at least one of the 13 spot Bitcoin ETF applications. But what then happens to the price of Bitcoin once we do see an approval? Let's bring in one of Bitcoin's biggest bulls and an early investor in the crypto space, Pomp Investments, Anthony Pompliano. All right. So here's what we're hearing, and here's what you predicted just a couple of months ago on the Claman Countdown. You said it would be a bunch of them.
Yes.
And let them all fight it out. Charlie Gasparino's sources saying Cathie Wood of ARK Investments, because her application was officially done first. My sources were telling me BlackRock, GBTC, and Cathie Wood. All right, who's it going to be? Have you changed your opinion at all?
I don't know exactly who's going to go first. What I think they should do is they should approve everyone, right? If you're going to allow the free market to make decisions in this country, then we shouldn't have regulators picking winners and losers. We don't need kingmaker. Just approve everyone, let them go fight it out. Now, what's interesting is there's estimated between $50 billion and $100 billion of assets that are going to go into these ETFs over the coming years, which means that the fee revenue every year could be $500 million to $1 billion. And so if you do that, that's $500 million to $1 billion every single year. How much money would you spend now to get those assets and have them be sticky? We're probably going to see hundreds of millions of dollars spent on marketing in the next 12 to 18 months by these Wall Street organizations saying, hey, if you want to buy a spot Bitcoin ETF, come buy it with me and not my competitors. And I think that is just something that we haven't seen in finance. It's going to be the greatest marketing blitz ever.
Would you invest in a piece of the ETF, or would you invest in BlackRock stock or ARK or perhaps GBTC? Well, GBTC is going to convert up just, one for one there. So
Bitcoin has been an incredible asset. It's highly volatile. It goes up and it goes down a lot. But if you look over a long period of time, it continues to go up. And, if you really think about it from a generational trade, every single generation has kind of one trade or one investment idea that tends to be the big winner. And I think that this generation has woken up to the idea that we have to debase the currency. We are going to continue to do that for decades to come. And so you're going to get into hard assets. Bitcoin historically has been the big winner there. It's up 170% last year. I think people believe it's going to go up a lot more in 2024 and beyond.
But let me you had just said that marketing and fees will bring huge windfalls to the ARKs and the BlackRocks of the world.
Yes.
So why take your shot with something as volatile as Bitcoin? And instead, why not go into BlackRock stock or... So you're saying, no, don't do the ARK stock and don't do the...
People are still going to do that stuff. I just think Bitcoin has outperformed those stocks historically, and I think it'll continue to do for a long period of time. One thing people should remember is that when you buy the ETF, you are buying exposure to Bitcoin. You're not actually buying Bitcoin itself. Mm-hmm. And so then there gets into the constituency. Some people say, no, I want to own Bitcoin itself. I want to hold my private keys. I want to have that self-custody. But for a lot of people, they're not going to go sign up for a Coinbase account. They're not going to go figure out how to buy Bitcoin directly. And so this ETF's right in their brokerage account. They're going to go and they're going to allocate.
Well, it opens the market to millions of retail investors who don't want to have to remember a 90-digit password or something, and then you lose it and it's a nightmare. With that in mind, what is your price target for Bitcoin in 2024 from low to high?
I don't know exactly where it's going to go in the short term when the ETF gets approved. There definitely is going to be a drastic increase. What I do not think is going to happen is it's very hard for me to see that we get a new all-time high just off of the ETF alone. What I do think is going to happen, though, is that we're going to get the Bitcoin halving at the beginning of Q2. We're also going to get interest rate cuts, and we're probably going to get quantitative easing in 2024 as well. And so what you're going to have is you're going to have a demand shock and a supply shock, meaning that there's going to be more demand for Bitcoin. At the same time, that halving is going to occur. Right. We're going to go from 900 Bitcoin coming into the market every day down to 450. And so that is really going to drive the price. I do think we get a new all-time high in 2024, but it's the combination of all of these things, not just the ETF alone.
For people who don't know, the halving is written into the original code of Bitcoin, and it chops it in half every 5 years. Am I correct?
Every 4 years.
Every 4 years. Okay. So 2023 was actually, let's broaden this discussion to the ugly underbelly of what happened in crypto. And that was, of course, what actually started in November of 2022. And that was the failure of Sam Bankman-Fried's crypto exchange.
Yes.
And I mean, that was just a disaster. Obviously, FTX was a bad thing and that triggered a real sell-off in Bitcoin. But where do we go from here? Because he's been convicted.
Yes.
And he will serve most likely a somewhat lengthy, we don't know how long, but a lengthy prison sentence because it's federal and they have guidelines. And then you've got CZ, who also had Binance. He ran Binance and he has faced all kinds of charges. Are we done with that nonsense? Or is it just like the old saying that there's a sucker born every minute and you're going to definitely see people try and take advantage of that?
Bad people do bad things regardless of the industry. One of the things that's really interesting is if you look at FTX basically took customer money, they went and they invested it and they lost it, right? And there's a whole bunch of questions as to why they did it, how they did it. But the big thing was they didn't tell customers they were going to do it, right? And that's ultimately what the big issue was. If you remember also in 2023, we had banks who took customers' money and they went and they bought treasuries. Those treasuries went underwater, right? Now the difference is the bank said, we're going to take your money, we're going to go and do this. So there's disclosures, there's regulation, there's all these different things, but we had banks fail and we had crypto exchanges fail, and they failed for different reasons. But ultimately, I think what the average person is going to start to figure out is I need to pay attention. I need to know, where am I putting my money? The days of simply just putting your money in an organization and hoping that it's still there years from now is gone. And so I think that the internet has really opened people's eyes and they're starting to understand, what is FDIC insurance? How do I actually protect this stuff? And I think that Bitcoin and cryptocurrency for this generation, again, Bitcoin was born in the ashes of the global financial crisis. And we now are seeing the capitulation of Wall Street where they are saying we have to get in the game.
And yet, the big banks, the legacy banks, appear to be part of writing the Digital Asset Anti-Money Laundering Act, the new regulations. What role, if any, should the big legacy banks, and we know that Jamie Dimon absolutely hates Bitcoin. He calls it fraud. Yeah, I know. What a shock to you.
JP Morgan is doing stuff in crypto,
but
right?
he's made it very clear he doesn't like it. But what role, if any, should the legacy banks have in writing the regulation that would deal with crypto?
Well, I think that obviously anytime you have the market participants writing the regulation, there's a lot of questions, right? For a long time, I've always thought that if you're a politician and you get put into office by donations from a certain industry, you shouldn't be able to regulate over that industry.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
And so having the banks write the banking regulation, it's just regulatory capture. But the difference here, and what I think is really important for people to understand, is Bitcoin is a decentralized organization. There is no CEO. There's no board of directors. You can write whatever rules you want. It is a decentralized protocol. And so your regulatory capture does not work against something that now has been deemed not a security and has been adopted by hundreds of millions of people around the world. So you may be able to capture the market in other parts of finance, but Bitcoin is going to remain resilient against those regulatory capture initiatives.
Pomp, we've got lobbyists from the farm industry and big oil on the phone for you. They're not real happy, but I'm with you. I think that
I love everyone.
Colors judgment for sure. Pomp, is great to see you.
Absolutely.
Happy New Year.
Thank you so much.